Copying's gone on for years. It's gone on since we've existed. What kind of really makes me sort of smirk and smile is that kind of scenario. There's a few skits out there on the internet where it says, "Is that a mockingbird?" And the mockingbird replies, "Is that a mockingbird?" It's just, it's that. I think there's a few different ways that people can copy artists, and even artists can copy other artists. And some of that is organically, subconsciously, but the thing that really annoys me is those that aren't. They're just there because they're purely wanting to gain, whether it's financial gain or ego gain. And that's a thing that really I'm against, and will champion and fight against that for as long as I can. My own personal experiences as an artist and designer, I've had art and design copied from me. Not only copied, but blatantly sold as well. It wasn't directly for a personal project that I was working on, but it was for a client's brief and project. I made a design. They wanted to use their design and logos on certain clothing and different kind of items to sell. They put it up for sale. They're only a small little group, so they put it up on some of the websites where you can print your own kind of custom clothing using the design that I created for them. Probably within a matter of weeks, it had been copied and then put on similar items in a website. I think it was something like Alibaba or AliExpress, one of those kind of Chinese websites, and it just kind of like annoyed them, because how on earth would a kind of small little local group want to sell their items in and out of China? You know, no disrespect to China, but the people that are doing it are not in it for anything else other than money and scamming people out of their money. And it's something that I personally hate with a passion. And sometimes there's things you can do about it, and sometimes there isn't. But I will always say, for me anyway now, I kind of take it very much in my stride. It's a bit like choosing that fight. You know, there's things that you will get involved with and things that you won't. On the AI side and purely financial side, and those people who just want to stiff and steal off artists, yeah, fight it. Because the only way that you're going to try to stop that for future is stop it now, stop it short, stop it fast, stop it hard, and take no mercy with that kind of attitude of people, because they don't give a care about you. So why should you care about them, how you approach it? And I think if they're going to do that and they're going to steal something from you, they're fair game how you kind of interact with that. And it also, you know, if you're an artist and a creative person, get your thinking caps on. How can you approach this in a very original, creative way that gets back at those people that are stealing things? You've seen that with the AI kind of like resistance in people putting really kind of bad work into the system again to kind of create that kind of descent of what AI is creating, or software that is kind of manipulating your own artwork, so it's a little bit less easier to actually reproduce and steal. There's never going to be a case where you're going to stop that outright, but there's always ways that you can kind of help yourself with that. A few of those ways are kind of professional bodies and organizations. You can link up with them. I've listed a few here which I've got in my notebook. One's kind of like DACS, DACS, which stands for Design and Artists Copyright Society. They have very much been championing for many years, you know, the copyright issue of artists and how they can help and sustain a kind of you know, professional growth within the industry, to kind of say, no, you know, copyright is wrong, copyright is theft, copyright takes money from whoever is the original, you know, creator and instigator of this work. You've also got people like ACID, Anti-Copying in Design. These are all kind of based in the UK because I'm based in the UK, but each kind of region and area and country, I'm sure, will have similar kind of organizations and bodies. And more so than ever now, with being connected, you'll find that lots of these organizations work with one another and work internationally also. I think that's a very kind of important thing to have, because I think it's also important to have that community, which then leads on to artists themselves. You can have a very strong movement in how people perceive you know, copyright theft and art theft and stealing and copying can be very much frowned upon if you approach it. You know, you have different movements already, things like cancel culture, which is called. Sometimes that can be a positive and a negative, but that is just a great instance of how quickly a group of people can really make a change. And I think sometimes artists forget that. There's lots of artists who strive to make a change in their own work, but forget that in a community you can make such a massive worldwide change. And I think we need to do that more than ever now. Artists need to group together to support one another, whether that's not only in social media but also offline. So, you know, an artist can't always look out for where their art and design is being used. And if you have many more eyes looking and sharing and helping each other, then it does make it a little bit easier to do that. Obviously you've got things like you can search online and image kind of Google imagery and things like that, but it's not always going to show up everything, and you need to have more eyes on the ground. You need to be aware of how this is happening and who's doing this and why they're doing this. And I think that then helps the larger kind of broad scope. Talking about kind of community and grouping together, not only can you do that as an artist with other artists and then have that help with professional organizations, but you can also have or connect with other professional organizations for your specialism. So for an example, you know, if you're a fine artist, you could join a fine art organization, and these are all examples of what I've kind of listed from the UK and within the UK, because I'm in the UK. But again, you search where you are and what you need, but also by searching one, it does have a knock-on effect that you may find other things. So if you're a fine artist, you may not already know of the Artists Information Company, otherwise known as AN. They've been going for many years. They put out opportunities, they put out a journal, constant news, constant blogs, constant kind of updates in what's going on within the art industry and art communities. I think it's very important to keep a breach of that and kind of keep a knowledge of what's going on. I'll list all of these websites below in the text and information, so you can see any of these. They're just small, short examples of examples of what I've found useful currently or in the past. So like I say, there's probably hundreds and hundreds of different professional bodies working in specific disciplines. So that's just one for the fine art. You've got people like Frank, Fair Artists Pay. They really support about finding that strength in an artist should have a pay equivalent to what everybody else is getting paid, if not more, and kind of like judging that payment in also how experienced that artist is as well. There's lots of different kind of aspects to that. But also you might want to join and feel like having that community. And you've got the Artists Union of England. It's been going a few years now, but it's fairly kind of recently new. But I think that is also important because lots of other professional, kind of professionalisms have unions, or you can join a union if you're a certain professional, like whether you're in, medicine or whether you're in kind of engineering, or kind of retail, things like that. But there hasn't been so much unions for artists. So I think this is a very important kind of step forward. And again, bringing that community, you can not only fight for and champion the artists' issues and problems, but also the wider, greater kind of just general life issues and problems, especially with what's going on in the world now. I think that's a very important community to have. And then previously, like what I already sort of touched on, specialized kind of bodies and organizations for your individual specialism. So whether that's, like I mentioned, sort of fine art, or if you're an illustrator, illustration, or a photographer, or a graphic designer, or a furniture maker, or a filmmaker, or a kind of writer, whichever that is, you will find your organization for your specialism. A short example of that is the AOI, which is the Association of Illustrators. You've got the AOP, Association of Photographers. You've got the CSD, the Chartered Society of Designers. So they're just a few examples where when you're in that community, you feel like you have that kind of a little bit more backup. It's not always going to be help or helping you to solve problems, especially with copyright theft, and kind of the legal aspects of that. But they will also have then other contacts to bring. I think there's like the Artists Lawyers Association and things like that, where you can link up them with the legal side of things and really look at kind of going after it if you're intending to follow something down the legal route, which is very timely, expensive. So, but like I said, there are other ways to do that. I think ultimately you have to be a little bit more aware and understand that humans and people are very similar. So we are going to have lots of the same ideas sometimes. And if you're so engrossed in yourself and have that kind of like egotistical idea that they've stolen my idea, they may well have stole your idea. They may well have just had a similar or the same idea around about at the same sort of time, because we're taking all of this influence and culture from what's going on, and we kind of mold the same things. I've noticed that when I was teaching at university, and I would have a group of 80 students, and they all had a brief, and yes, because they're restricted to that brief, they are going to come up with very similar ideas. But I would say there's then only probably being a handful, maybe 4 or 5 people out of that 80 that approach it from a very unique way and come in and they stand out above the rest. So what does that say? I suppose it says that there's always going to be people that are a little bit unique in what they do, and people will always then follow that when they see that route, and then it becomes not unique anymore. And that's how we kind of have that revolving and evolving trends and fashion where people are copying everybody. People are copying Facebook videos, YouTube videos, fashion, literature, art, film. It's all kind of blended together in this massive kind of melting pot. And there's only going to be a few people that kind of bubble to the top and really kind of stand out. That's just how it is. It's just one of those things. It happens. So don't get offended by that, you know. If you have a similar idea to somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean that they've stole it or they've copied it. You know, I always think back to when you were at school and you kind of like, people are trying to copy each other's work or copying how they dress or copying, you know, it's a very kind of immature way of approaching things. You can copy things and then make them your own and turn them around to make it so it's so unique that it doesn't look like the original copy. I think that's where a lot of the AI people get a little bit, they kind of misunderstand what is copyright, what is copyright theft, what is kind of image manipulation in a way where it's not actually stealing something directly and then trying to make a profit on that directly, and that having then an effect on that original artwork or artist. That is completely misunderstood, I think, in today's day and age, and it's something that really needs to be a lot more kind of explained, I think, which you shouldn't have to, because all the information is out there, but people are just so lazy now that they just won't go and explore that and research that for themselves, or they come across completely misinformation, which again is a whole new sort of issue and topic. I would say it's difficult, if not impossible, to say someone has copied your ideas or concepts, because ideas and concepts are very much up in the air and they can be very kind of hard to pin down. And so just be aware of who you say and who you talk to about your ideas, because again, in the past I've gone in and I've openly given people ideas freely, and I used to do that as a professional, actually, kind of working on projects with the Arts Council, and obviously in my teaching aspect, constantly giving ideas, but also in professional networks, helping other creatives and other creative businesses to strive and grow by giving my ideas freely. Now that is me giving away something because it helps other people, but also I'm consenting to that. You can have this, I'm giving it away. But then the other side of that is when you go and you're having a conversation with maybe one or two other creatives and you say, oh, I've got this idea for maybe a graphic novel, for instance, and this is the title, and I want it to look like this, and I've been inspired by this. And then before you've actually kind of produced yours, you've noticed that that exact same person has done that exact same thing. Now, you could call that a coincidence, but I'd call that very much being a copycat. And especially if they then go on to make that into a financial kind of business. And I've had that kind of experience as well for myself. So I've experienced all of those kind of like aspects. And like I said right at the beginning, there's different things to choose and not choose, and what to fight and what not, and just what to just let go. I think, like I said right at the beginning, you can decide on what direction you kind of go in. I now just tend to take it in my stride. The internet and the way imagery is going is becoming such a big mixture, melting pot of gloop, that sometimes I feel like it's not that helpful. Yeah. What do you guys think? You can comment below, or you can go off and have a think about this and see what you think about how you approach your artwork and ideas and concepts and copyright and how you produce things. You know, you can hide things away and be very kind of secretive, to a point where I know people have been so secretive that they won't put anything out online. But if people don't see what they're doing, they're never going to grow and kind of get to that point where people can see what they're doing for good. Yeah, it's finding that balance. I know other people as well who only show like processes of artworks and never the end piece on social media, and their kind of argument is that then they can direct people to their own website and own works of finished pieces, and have that kind of connection and journey and communication to build up. But that takes time, and it takes it's more of a long game, that is. And yeah, I think you need all of that, but maybe just not choose one way. Have lots of different kind of approaches to things and test things out and see how things pan out for you. But don't be afraid of someone copying something, and take a step back and just approach it in a very kind of thoughtful, methodical way, and you will then see things hopefully a little bit differently, and have the kind of strength and then power of how to move forward and how to deal with it. That's all I've got to say for now. Take care, and I'll see you again.